after nearly a decade of waiting, the Western world now has access to the latest entry in the Rune Factory series, Rune Factory 5. Rune Factory 5 is the latest numbered entry in the Rune Factory series, and is both a massive departure from Rune Factory 4 while remaining familiar to the Rune Factory core roots. So, after waiting for so long, was Rune Factory 5 worth the wait? This is supposed to be the hook for the review, but yes, it was absolutely worth the wait. However, before I start going to how much I adore Rune Factory 5, we need to address the elephant in the room first. I am front-loading the review with this, as this is my only major piece of criticism for the game that may hamper your overall enjoyment if you're unable to get beyond it. This would be that the performance of this game can be downright abysmal at times. The game, from what I can see, targets 30 frames per second, and a lot of the time it can struggle to meet this goal. Now, for a farming game, yeah, that's not too bad. Pioneers of Olive had the same issue, but I got over it. But for the action game part of this, well, that's where you begin to lose some people. Not me though, I'm too much of a simp for Ludmilla. But yeah, the game can be a technical mess at times. Through patches leading up to the launch, they have somewhat improved, but not all of them. The biggest annoyance I have is that it seems like the game never wants to load in all at once, despite the long load screen. When you leave a building, you'll be greeted with a few seconds of extreme frame dips, and sometimes your fields won't even render in until a few seconds after arriving in the area. You may also run into crashes occasionally that don't have any real reason behind them. Thankfully, this game does have a pretty good autosave feature for when you're dungeoneering, so if you crash while in a dungeon, you won't miss too much. But ideally, it shouldn't happen. So yeah, I wanted to get all of that out of the way before we dive right into everything I do enjoy about the game. This is the biggest issue the game provided me, and so it's all uphill from here. For those of you who may be turned off by the performance issues this game has, the only solace I can really provide you is that XSEED has a fantastic track record of porting their games to PC, so we may expect the same treatment for Rune Factory 5 that we had with Pioneers of Olive. Performance aside, Rune Factory 5 is honestly the pinnacle of the Rune Factory series for me. I am not sure I'll be able to do the best job of putting my love of this game into words, but I'm gonna damn well try. I personally have been mixed on the Rune Factory series in terms of its design direction, and I have never been the biggest fan of the semi-top-down perspective. I've always enjoyed what Frontier and Oceans did with the series, and to see a numbered Rune Factory title go in that direction, well, I was as happy as the Wooly plotting world domination. So let's first discuss the story, shall we? Rune Factory titles for the most part have always been very light in the story department, and this is normally a given due to Hashimoto's design philosophy on games. However, Rune Factory 5 is able to keep that core design style of storytelling, while for the first time being able to add on so much more to the overall storytelling of the world of Rune Factory. This isn't Story of Seasons, all Rune Factory games are connected to each other, and to be able to see the world continue to grow entry over entry is always a real treat. We of course start off as the standard amnesiac in the middle of a forest, only for us to quickly spring into action to save a little girl who's being targeted by monsters. From there, we are being recruited into the agency known as XSEED, an organization whose goal is to keep the peace in the region and to help out the inhabitants of any requests they may have. If you're familiar with the Trails series, this is pretty much Rune Factory's version of the Bracer Guild. The story is more or less told through the lens of XSEED, and using them as a way to explore the post-Sex Empire world. As a member of XSEED, you'll be investigating the troubles people have around town, and working to discover several different mysteries that are happening in the dungeons across the region you are in. So before we get too deep into the dungeons and combat, I first want to take some time to talk about the social aspect of Rune Factory 5, and how it is probably the best one in the Rune Factory series to date, and probably even better than the majority of the Story of Seasons series as well. Rune Factory 5 is one of the largest cast of characters in the entire Rune Factory series. Normally this could cause a problem, as having too many characters can just cause certain ones to be watered down or underutilized. Well, I can say without a shadow of doubt that Rigbarth is one of the most liveliest and tight-knit communities you will come to find in a game like this. The town of Rigbarth feels alive, and everyone in town feels connected with each other's actions. You want to learn more about your favorite character? Well, go and find their close friend and talk to them on a daily basis, and you'll actually learn more and more about the character in question. There is no character in this game that comes off as a lone wolf type of person, and everyone fits in together very well. Even when we bring in new characters such as Lucas and Ludmilla, they are assimilated into the town with ease, bringing their own quirks to the amazing Rigbarth stew. No, seriously, Rune Factory 5 has my favorite cast of characters out of any Rune Factory title currently out, and honestly better than any cast from any Story of Seasons game either. As much as I love Ludmilla, I was fighting an internal battle on if I was going to wait and marry her, or go for like Scarlet, Lucy, or Priscilla. Even the weaker ones like Beatrice and Fuka are better than even some of the stronger bachelorettes in previous titles. And the bachelors, well, I don't swing that way, but they are just as lovable characters that I wouldn't mind going for any of them too. There is honestly not a single bad character in this game in my opinion. The character events of all of the bachelors and bachelorettes really do open them up to you, and just give you a cozy time of learning more and more about each person's story and what makes them tick. Even outside of these events, you are constantly learning more about the people of Rigbarth through casual conversations as you befriend everyone. This is probably the first Rune Factory title that I have taken the time to want to get everyone up to max hearts or max friendship, because man, I really do love everyone in this game. And you know what the best part about these events are? They are not random. Icons will appear on the map when an event is ready to play out, and you can just go to it and have it unlocked. Worlds better than Rune Factory 4, where I would spend years just trying to get Zhao Pai's events just so I can marry her. I'm not bitter, I'm just really happy that's not the case with Ludmilla in this game. I could go on and on about how amazing this cast of characters are, and how thanks to them this is the first Rune Factory game that I want to 100%. But we would be here all day. The cast in this game is easily the strongest written Rune Factory cast out of any game in this series, which is a huge step up because before this, that was my opinion of Rune Factory 4, and they somehow managed to blow that expectation right out of the water. The only downside that I can say is that Ludmilla is the last character you unlock, and she comes very late into the game. I won't spoil how you unlock her, but don't expect to see your personal succubus yandere join your fold until a bit after the halfway point of the main story, maybe even closer to the later third of the game. It made sense as to why she was that late, but still, I love her. I wanted her at the start. This is me saying I encourage Gamma X Ludmilla fanart, by the way. So now that the cast of characters is out of the way, let's talk about the next awesome thing that Rune Factory 5 does, and that is with its dungeons. Rune Factory 5 once again comes on top over its predecessors by having some of the best dungeon designs and ideas to date. While the dungeons you explore at the start of the game are some of your basic fares, such as ice dungeons, lava dungeons, etc., the later you get into the game, the cooler and more interesting these dungeons get. Some of them are so cool that I'm honestly disappointed that none of them are explained in the game's lore. One of them is an abandoned underground city, where you are exploring the ruins of its urban sprawl. And some of the lights in the place are still working too. This one dungeon alone had so much potential for storytelling about what it is or why it's even here, but all we get is that it's just a cursed place where people go mad and nothing more. Disappointing, but again, Hashimoto's writing style focuses on the micro level, and the implications of this dungeon go to the macro level given the world politics. But outside of that missed potential, all of the dungeons are fun to explore, and each one has some pretty creative and fun boss fights as well. In terms of dungeons, a major departure from previous Rune Factory titles is the removal of farming inside of dungeons. In previous entries, you had the ability to go to different dungeons to grow crops for specific seasons year-round. That has been replaced in Rune Factory 5 with farm dragons. Farm dragons are flying dragons that allow you extra farm space to grow specific crops out of the normal seasonal rotations. This is also where you will build your barns and amenities to house creatures that you capture and the like too. I don't feel too strongly about the change either way, but it does allow for the dungeons to be designed more as dungeons and not always have to accommodate for extra farm space, so that's always a plus. The last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of combat is the overhauled party system. In Rune Factory 5, you were able to have a party of up to 4, including yourself. This includes other villagers, your own monsters, and monsters that you can script into your service. See, unlike previous entries, you can capture monsters with a new capture system, and they'll be your ally for an entire day. So if you need a partner on the fly in the middle of a dungeon, you can cast your seal spell and have them join you until you dismiss them or they get defeated in battle. This comes in handy when you go into dungeons alone and you realize you're a bit underprepared, so you can just capture one of the natives to have them fight with you. This also makes taming monsters easier, as if you have the space you can give them gifts until they join you, making monster taming less of a headache. However, you can only have one rented monster in your party at a time, so you really want to rely on your fellow villagers or your own tamed beasts. A lot of the dungeons in this game are also really balanced around having a full party with you too, especially in the later game. Also, the game encourages you to have party members by having the new combo attack system. If you get your meter raised of a certain party member, you can perform a very powerful centralized attack that is not only flashy, but can do a good job when you want to single target one monster too. The combat is also your standard Rune Factory fare. You have many different weapons and styles at your disposal. From magic to dual blades to just punching your way through problems, this game has you covered in your dungeoneering adventures. My personal favorite are the fists, because it turns the combat into a watered-down Yakuza-esque adventure. The combat itself is extremely fluid, and when in dungeons, where the frame rate stays at a near-lock 30 FPS, is where it shines the most. Being able to time perfect dodges to get more combos off on the enemy or bosses is such a rush that I'm always trying to get it. The only issue with the combat comes from the inconsistent frame rate when fighting in the overworld and the lock-on system. The lock-on system doesn't do the best job of targeting the closest thing to you, and the camera does get a bit wonky if the enemy you want to target isn't fully on screen. But I more or less got used to these things and just always made sure to focus on what was right in front of me for the most optimal results. Next we have the factory part of Rune Factory, farming and crafting. Nothing has been fundamentally changed from Rune Factory 4 when it comes to either. You will have the ability to craft whatever weapons, accessories, tools, armors, and meals that you want to take into battle with you, or craft special gifts for that special someone of yours too. You also still level up from doing just about anything from sleeping to eating to using specific weapons or spells. The higher these levels, the higher your stats become and the better chance you have at creating better equipment. This here is the definition of if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Those coming in from previous Rune Factory entries will feel right at home, and for any newcomers, the system is streamlined very well where you will become a master crafter in no time flat. I really dislike how little space in this review I'm dedicating to this and farming, but seriously, it is your standard fare. The farming system is a near one-for-one rip out of previous Rune Factory entries. The only thing you have to worry about is keeping track of what day is the best day to harvest your crops for maximum yield. What makes this game different from Story of Seasons is that you're not locked to specific seasons to grow stuff. Certain things just grow better in certain seasons. This is good due to how reliant things are on crafting in this game, as the things you grow can be used to make better medicine, gears, or gifts for people around town. And after all, homemade gifts do have a nice buff when you do gift them. Overall, Rune Factory 5 is pretty much everything that I've ever wanted in a Rune Factory game. It is not only a follow-up to Rune Factory 4, but a spiritual follow-up to that of Rune Factory Frontier. I really do hope Rune Factory 5 is the new basis they'll be building off of for future Rune Factory titles, as I love every choice and direction this game has taken over 4. The only real complaints to this game is the poor performance you can experience when leaving buildings, or when you have too many things loaded on screen at once. But if you can get over that, you truly have one of the best farming sims and JRPGs available to you on the Nintendo Switch right now. And if those issues really do hold you back from wanting to play this amazing new entry, let XSEED know you have an interest in a PC port. I can tell you for a fact they really do listen. And that does it for my review of Rune Factory 5. Man, almost a decade between this and Rune Factory 4. I honestly can't believe I made it to see this, and to even cover this game. Rune Factory 5 is personally my favorite game in this series, and I hope you have the same level of fun and enjoyment that I had in this game. I also hope I was able to get across how much I really do love this game. And Ludmilla. I really do love Ludmilla. Anyway, that does it for this review. If you have any comments or questions, by all means leave them down in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. If you want to see what other stuff I'm up to, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at GammaPT. Hint, this is where you can send me all your Gamma X Ludmilla fan art. And on Twitch, twitch.tv/GammaPT. Also, be sure to subscribe to me for future commentaries and reviews. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching.